That's why when I'm doing spirit communication and people ask, are they alone? Are they unhappy? Spirits are never unhappy. They're pure energy. Energy doesn't get old, sick, tired, or die. So they're linked to this vast collective of intelligence. Well, we are too. We are too. And our EMS still interfaces with the collective consciousness, whether or not we are consciously aware of it.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. Another day in paradise. It's good to be me. I'm very excited to have this guest on the podcast today. I want to welcome to the podcast Mark Anthony, JD, Psychic Explorer. He is a master of many things and has spent many decades exploring and sharing his insight and wisdom teaching. Welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you, San. It is really an honor to be here. And I've been really looking forward to this show, this interview in particular.
Yeah. It's always good to little shop talk with people that have got a few clicks on the old biological clock here in the paranormal. It's always exciting. So how about we introduce a little bit about you, just abbreviated version of how you got here.
I was born into a family of psychics and mediums, and I've tracked this back 4 generations at least on both sides of my family. My dad was a Navy SEAL, but after the Navy, he became an aerospace engineer. My mom was a commercial artist. So, they weren't public about their abilities, but both of them had them. They both were mediums. And when I was about 3.5 years old, I started interacting with my invisible friends. And it's not unusual for a toddler to have invisible friends. But when mommy and daddy can see who I'm talking to, that's a whole different dimension. And so dad was like, oh my God, he's got it. And mom was like, oh my God, he's got it. So the reactions were somewhat different. And my childhood was interesting, to say the least. I realized once I started school that not everybody's family was like mine. I'd come home from school and mom would be like, oh, I saw the spirit today. And I'd be like, so do we have any peanut butter? And she's like, yeah, it's over there. And I'd be making a sandwich and she'd be telling me about this. And, but both of my parents also had near-death experiences. And I have as well when I was 4 years old. And I initially thought I was going to go into the clergy. And that's why I'm so honored to be here, because you're a Taoist priest. And so you understand the attraction for people that have psychic and mediumistic abilities to go into the clergy. But I was raised in the Catholic faith, and, I started looking at it, and it was like, for me, it was too restrictive. Because even though my mother was a devout Catholic and my dad's family was Baptist, the conversations at our dinner table were, we'd be talking about St. Francis of Assisi, and then Gandhi, and then Krishna. I mean, we were all over the place. And so I felt there were too many rules and regulations. So I went into law. Now, that in and of itself, jumping out of the rule and regulatory fire and, a frying pan right into the fire. But people tend to think that being an attorney and a psychic medium are polar opposites, but they're both about helping people, and they're both dependent on evidence, because as lawyers, you help people through really difficult times. And a lot of people don't like attorneys, because when you go to an attorney when things are not good. You're getting sued, you've been arrested, you've been injured. I mean, there's something, negative in your life for the most part. So people tend to project that onto us. And a lot of times clients don't like to hear what we have to tell them, even though that's what they need to hear. But nonetheless, we help them through difficult times. As a medium, I help people who are coping with the loss of a loved one by facilitating communication between them and their loved ones in spirit. Both jobs are about evidence. I mean, an attorney has to have evidence to prove his or her case in court. But as a medium, when a spirit transmits information to me, I have to receive verifiable facts, pieces of evidence that can be objectively verified that I have no way of knowing to guarantee the authenticity of the contact. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But I do a number of other things as well, San. Um, I'm a near-death experiencer and near-death experience researcher. I'm a paranormal investigator. I travel around the world to mystical and supernatural sites, examining anomalous phenomenon. And I do work with people who are coping with grief. In addition to that, I'm an author and I co-host a weekly live stream show, The Psychic and the Doc. My co-host is the amazing Dr. Pat Basili, a world-renowned behavioral psychologist. And what happens is people will call in. I'll do a reading for them, a mini reading, get some of their loved ones in, and then Dr. Pat helps them understand the full repercussions of the connection. And so we do that every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. But people can find out about that on my website, which is afterlifefrequency.com. So in a nutshell, that is my background.
How wonderful, how exciting, how exhilarating it is just to be alive today, and what potential that we're experiencing as explorers. I love that word you use, exploring and really experiences. And your mastery, having spanned your biological lifetime, must be super inspiring on a day-to-day basis. For me, it's as if it happened for the first time. And I get all giddy like a little kid when I experience anything within the paranormal,
right,
or supernormal experiences. And it's so funny. I would give you an invitation to head on down to where I'm in Las Vegas. So I do. I have a dear friend of mine who's a Catholic priest, and we go around the hotels and we read all the hot spots, the grids, the power centers, the water seas, and then go through all the entities that are consuming that space and what their purpose is. And it's super fascinating. People love it. And then we get into the geometry, because all these people are paying people like myself to create a feng shui, so everyone loses money. The purpose of walking in that space is to lose as much money as possible. But if you decipher it and you follow the guide that I give you, your lady luck will turn up. But you have to be very curious, like your Sherlock to your Watson. And
interesting that you bring up money, because money is in a sense a form of energy. I mean, think about it. And we know from the laws of thermodynamics and physics that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. In Las Vegas, I've seen a lot of people transform their money from one form to another. But leaving humor aside, think about it. Energy was neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. What gives money value? Nobody created. It was there. It was just recognized and then transferred into a form that we can understand it. Initially it was in precious metals, then paper currency. Now it's electronic, Bitcoin. The services that you provide have value, and you're expending energy to do it. Because a lot of times people will say to people like yourself and me, well, you should just do what you do for free. And it's like, as much as I would like to do that, the salad that I eat at night did not magically show up on my plate. Somebody had to grow it. Somebody had to harvest it. Somebody had to put it on a truck. Somebody had to bring it to a distribution center. Somebody had to bring it to a grocery store. Somebody had to package it. Somebody had, to sell it. All these things require money. Okay. Yes, maybe the sun is free and the water is a gift from earth, but it still requires a tremendous amount of energy to get that salad on your plate at dinner time. And people, because of the nature of what we do is spiritually oriented, people think, well, you should just do it for free. It's like, well, I'd love to do things for free. And that's why I do free readings on the Psychic and the Doc. But for the one-on-one sessions, for my group events, for the events that you do working with the vortices and energy and the feng shui, that requires a lot of energy expenditure on your part. It's like mediumship requires a lot of energy expenditure on my part. And because our abilities are like a battery, and it runs down, and then it has to be recharged, and we have to be replenished. And that's the nature of energy. Created, not neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another.
I love that insight because most people, when they end up on my doorstep, whatever their their device is, you know, mediumship, channeling, healing, light worker, you experience all these things as you know, share the wisdom teaching through your own experience. And the first thing I always ask people is, how do you feel at the end of your day? Well, I'm exhausted. Now, that's where the method to the madness, in my opinion, is so important, to have a cultivational practice that will sustain what we call within Taoism your Jing, your life force, your constitution.
Yes.
And once you have Imperium over these 50 trillion cells, you can maintain your battery life at 100% consistently and tune into the unified state of what we call the primordial mother. And so
Right.
I would love you to share your insight, your mastery, how you teach people to sustain that. Because so many people, that old expression, you're selling your soul, they literally are selling what we call the currency of this realm. Within Taoism, the currency is the electromagnetism, and to have Imperium over that, right? And to be able to realize that it's frequential, it's vibratory, and you must be able to hold that resonance. And this is the vehicle, the tuning fork that creates that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think that is right on point. And I love when you're talking about electromagnetism. One of the key concepts that I introduced in my latest book, The Afterlife Frequency, is the electromagnetic soul. And we know from every great belief system, whether it was Hinduism 5,000 years ago, the world's oldest religion, through Zoroaster, through Moses, Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Jesus, Muhammad, Native American spirituality, the animistic religions of Africa, bring it all the way up through Gandhi, Mother Teresa. I mean, what does every great faith spiritual teacher tell us is that the soul, the spirit, our consciousness, the who and what we are, pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and moves on after the body ceases to function. Like we were just discussing, thermodynamics teaches us energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. We know from the field of neuroscience that the brain, while it's only 2% of the body's weight, uses over 20% of its electromagnetic energy. So it has an energy field. Studies in the field of consciousness, in the scientific sense, in the last 50 years, theorized that the brain did not create consciousness. Now, Taoists have known this for thousands of years, as have Hindus and other people of faith. The brain is merely a host for your consciousness. It's kind of like your computer hard drive. Your computer hard drive didn't create the Windows program and the data on it. It merely hosts it. And so when the computer hard drive / brain crashes, dies, the information isn't lost. It's then uploaded to another frequency. So after a lifetime of being a medium and decades of research, I developed the electromagnetic soul theory. We know that everything's made of molecules, which in turn are made of atoms, which in turn are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are made of the smallest particle, which is a quantum. And that's pure electromagnetic energy, ergo the term quantum physics. That's where that comes from. Now, for the physicists watching this, technically an electron is a quantum because it's 1/1800th the size of a proton. So I want to make sure everyone's happy. But what that means, San, and I know you already know this. What does every great spiritual teacher tell us? We're all interconnected, right? We hear that. Okay, Jesus said it, Buddha said it, they all say it. Okay, What does every near-death experiencer, people that have a near-death experience where they die and their soul leaves their body, but then they return and they talk about we're all interconnected. Well, on the subatomic level, everything is at quanta, is electromagnetic energy. Everything in our material universe. That means you, me, this pen, the chairs we're sitting in, the radio waves that are broadcasting this program, the light from the sun, the rings of Saturn, and beyond are at the subatomic level, the same form of energy, which is electromagnetic energy. We are all interconnected. And what's really cool is science has been split into two categories: the biological sciences, which study living matter. It's like botany, biology, microbiology, and then the physical sciences, which are physics, chemistry, engineering. They've been in two different categories, but when you take them down to the subatomic level, there is no difference between biological sciences and the physical sciences. Ergo, we're all interconnected. So why isn't this pen alive? Because everything at the subatomic level vibrates at different frequencies. So you and I are alive because our vibrational frequency, or rather the vibrational frequency of the electromagnetic energy and our soul, which is housed in the brain, vibrating at a higher frequency. So I developed the term the electromagnetic soul, the EMS theory, to describe what we truly are, which is pure electromagnetic energy, which is eternal, that and it's pure consciousness. So what that means is that when we die, our EMS leaves our body. It's a coherent quantum field. And so when you die, you take you with you, and you simply go to another frequency. So those are my thoughts on that.
I find that fascinating. It's amazing how we merge this conscious collective, and how that resonance seems to permeate through every lens. We call it, excuse me one second. We call that the diamond of perfection. In summary, how a Taoist would look at metaphysics, i.e. Physics, period, is light to wave to matter to particle, using your attention intention to create distortion, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk, would call the dukkha. And you are now creating this currency we call electromagnetism. This is the currency of this realm. The journey for a Taoist seeker is to take immortality and crystallize it into material. That is the cultivating and alchemy process, that you merge and create lead into gold through the alchemical process. Furthermore, that inquiry, by creating distortion, you have this currency.
Yeah.
One of my dear friends is like, it's a current and you see it. Well, we talk about this. It's like the finite mind, the corrupt and bankrupt ego state, the personality. These are all the same type of things, where you're not going to ever do anything other than repeat the same thing and be Groundhog Day as an intellect. You must merge and find the center point, the vesica. And that is within it, that currency is the electromagnet. I mean, I love hearing your explanation, because as a Taoist, that's how we look at it. So you've now created distortion, and that distortion comes in the form of energy potential. And that energy potential is vibratory and it's frequential. And if met with resonance, if you're able to hold that, like holding a note, then you are able to create from that, as you are a creator, whatever you desire. It starts with inquiry. It then turns to curiosity, contemplation. Furthermore, you nurture hope, and that hope breeds belief. But the belief is only met as an experiential moment. You must be able to experience it to be whole. And
Yes.
then that knowing is the repeatability that I think you're focusing on, which is so powerful, because that evidence-based thing is what we call, well, I coined your Sherlock to your Watson. Elementary, my dear Watson. You find the crumbs and then you materialize it, and you repeat it. It must be repeatable, or it's a delusional transitory state. That charge you and I are experiencing as we're oscillating, someone would call it potentially, if you were an illusionist pretending to create psychokinesis, this is actually it. We are merging in this unified state, and the energy potential is realized between the two of us as that charge continues to emanate from your physical body. It is a collective. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And see, while we're in corporeal form, in other words, when our EMS is encased in our body, we tend to think of ourselves as singular units, isolated and alone, and we're not. We're energetically linked to each other. And what we have to keep in mind with the EMS, the electromagnetic soul, is that we're actually multidimensional beings. In other words, our EMS is here, but it's got this field. It's like when you see auras, and I know that you see auras. An aura is a line, an outline. All right, take the lamp behind me. Okay, anything with a power source has an aura. All right, the light bulb in that lamp, you see the glow around it. Well, human beings, all living beings, actually everything does, but particularly living beings, we have an aura. That's a light field around us. That's our energy field. Now, it just doesn't stop here. It is energetically linked to what I refer to as the collective consciousness, which sounds like what you were describing. And the collective consciousness, think of your soul as a drop of water. And so when we physically die, that drop of water, the EMS, then plunges into this eternal sea of souls. And then you're linked to other spirits, linked to other spirits, linked to other spirits. That's why when I'm doing spirit communication and people ask, are they alone? Are they unhappy? Spirits are never unhappy. They're pure energy. Energy doesn't get old, sick, tired, or die. So they're linked to this vast collective of intelligence. Well, we are too. We are too. And our EMS still interfaces with the collective consciousness, whether or not we are consciously aware of it. And people who practice meditation and prayer, true people of faith, or true people that connect with this, you understand this. And once again, that's why all the great spiritual teachers say that we're all brothers and sisters. We're all interconnected. It's all about energy. And I've had people say, well, that's really hard to wrap your head around. And it's like, you think? I mean, let's face it, quantum physics, it did take Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, Louis de Broglie, to come up with this. Some of the greatest minds the world has ever produced. So if you have a hard time wrapping your head around it, that's okay. That's okay. But understanding, or at least acknowledging that we're all energetically interconnected is where we need to start. I think in our path of spirituality, because the people who don't get it tend to embrace ego, which I call edging God out. That's the me. Okay. And we see a lot of this, especially these days, of people that everything's about them all the time. And the difference between the brain creates the ego, because those are thought processes within the brain, and the spirit is that the spirit is selfless, whereas the ego is selfish. And even Sigmund Freud talked about these type of things, but leaving Freudian psychology aside, when we get to the spirit versus the ego, there's that dichotomy of positive and negative energy. And there are times being selfish is important. It's like, it's the self-preservation. It gives you the impetus to get out of the way of a truck coming to hit you. It gives you the impetus to learn how to swim so you don't drown. But the spirit is what gives you the love, the compassion, and the kindness, and the sense of being part of something larger than yourself. So a lot of people say ego is always bad, and love is always good. Really? And I've heard some people say the ego is fear. Fear is always bad. So let me ask you this. Sticking your hand in a basket full of rattlesnakes, being afraid of that is a bad thing, or is falling in love with a sociopath is a good thing? So the world is not as simple as that, and yet it is.
Yeah, I mean, it comes right back to what we're reiterating through this conversation is everything is frequential. So, I mean, for a Taoist, you find the center point. The lens of reality is the template of yin and yang, which does not mean positive and negative. Yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the emission of all colors. And your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find the Vesica, the center point of reality, which is
Balance.
within all the energy potential. This is the unified state. You're not
Right.
from one extreme to another. You are unified as whole, which furthermore, through inquiry, if we're using a physics model, would rely on beyond the electromagnetism of this realm and identifying with things that are more 0 point related, scalar, this type of state, the event horizon of a black hole. This is where you start merging with other things that are beyond this electromagnetism. It cannot be measured that way. So that power,
yeah, no, the 0 point, getting to that, it's balance. It's the balance between the two. There was an 18-year-old in 1964, and he was in a horrific car accident and pronounced dead for 20 minutes. And even though he'd been DOA at the hospital, the doctors decided to still, try to resuscitate him, and they did. And he came back with a realization that his consciousness went into another realm. And he said, I feel that we're interconnected with everyone and everything everywhere. His name was George Lucas. And within a few years of that, he had a draft of a story called Star Wars. Now, the Force. We all know Darth Vader, the Luke, I am your father, the evil. What is Darth Vader is the negative side, the dark side of the Force, the ego, the me, okay? And then there's the light side of the Force, which is selflessness. Jedi Knights give up all those things. They're not materialistic. Gee, I wonder where George Lucas got the idea for this. And I believe, and I've written about it in the Afterlife frequency, I believe, and he even explained this to Oprah Winfrey, that had such a profound effect on him and all of his work. So Star Wars is the result of a near-death experience. It's the after effect of a near-death experience. And of course, you had to make it into the bad guys versus the good guys, but there's this constant balance, this constant competition. And as horrible and evil as Darth Vader was, in the end, he accepted the light, which I think was really a good storyline to let us know that everyone can come to a form of redemption, to where they do acknowledge. And it's very important for all of us to realize that the light may be blocked. Your field of vision, what you call distractions, can pollute it, but nonetheless, the light is always there. And for many people, their spiritual journey in life is to get to that realization that no matter how many distractions that you've had, no matter how many painful relationships, financial issues, healing, health issues, that beyond all of it, the light is there. In a very simplistic term, every night the sun goes down, but the sun didn't disappear and the sun rises again. So we all have dark periods or negative periods or difficult periods, but we need to keep focused that the light, the positivity is there. And it's like our physical being. We think we're individuals, and life is not always easy. I mean, some people seem to have it better than others. I mean, think about the wildfires in Southern California. It wiped out the Palisades, and I see on social media people writing really ugly things. Oh, well, they're rich, they can handle it. Well, not just wealthy people lost their homes; a lot of poor people did too. And the thing is, uh, we cannot ever take comfort in the suffering of others, but it does add perspective. So, despite the wealth and affluence of these people, they are still struggling. This is their dark period, but eventually there will be the light. And so we have to realize that our material world bodies are but temporary. And eventually, when the EMS leaves this container, we will be connected with a much greater whole. So I hope that all makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, within Taoism, once again, I'll just refer to it's yin and yang. It's not good or bad. So
Yeah,
the
which is
absorption,
better. Yeah.
which is the center point. So when we observe reality, everything is a bellows. That means that everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. The center point is harnessing that resonance of what we call the primordial mother, which we call Wu Ji. And then we refer to a dear friend of mine that has come to me for many decades, this very iconic figure from the 70s by the name of Bruce Lee, who coined the effects of the flow baby, which we refer to as Wu Wei. And that's part of his Taoist path of training, that the Wu Wei is the effortless action, the effortless effort. That's the center point. Once you obtain that, which we call the concentration of the diamond of perfection, you access the unified state, which then leads to manifestation, magic, healing. There's a resonance that is instantaneous, that is beyond the electromagnetism and is evident in this material space. So that now, all of a sudden, you are no longer subject to this. And how does that work? Well, this is what we call the point of no return, where you detach and attach as one, as you would call a singular from a physicist perspective. But the unified state is now your default, your autonomous state that you don't have to think. If you're thinking, you're not. If you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And that's where the visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response is your guiding force. And, a dear friend of mine, Tom Campbell, and I just summarized all this down to his large consciousness system, his version of reality as a virtual reality. We summarize it the same way within Taoism.
Yeah.
The simplicity of it is your glass half empty or full? I mean, we can get into all the weeds, but it's like you can merge with that, because the mirroring effect of the universe, which has no moral compass, will give you that indicator. I want more. You want more, boy. Oliver's twist. The most quintessential moment is to realize that if you ask for the universe to give you more of something, you will receive it instantaneously once you hold that resonance. Now, if I want to experience love, then it's going to give you the experience of wanting to feel love. And so when we talk about love, that universal state, that selflessness, the servitude that you and I are very clear on, that is a state where, okay, now how do you observe the evidence of that? And, a lot of my students are like, Jiffu, but I want all the fun stuff, like the levitation, the magic, all the things that we can do within that cultivational practice. These are great, but they're transitory. If you hold on to it, I'm a little bit reserved when I see a student that gets obsessed with one magical expansion, because it will continually accumulate itself. If it focuses on just levitating or the ability to manifest and heal, these are all aspects of unified. But to be whole, you will want for none of these things. You will merge and move forward with that selflessness of servitude, and that will be your very evidence. You're not thinking about, what can I get out of this? Where am I going with this that I can be satisfied? because I've never witnessed in 36 years a physical healing, a mental, emotional, spiritual healing being in identity of any kind. It's the now moment. That's the Vesica point, the Wu Ji. It's right now. And, furthermore, measuring, brain waves, which I've been doing for decades,
Yeah.
I will witness physical healing at 40 hertz, 100 hertz, 400 hertz, which is when I get down with my teacher, Lao Tzu, and I'm blasting that juice into this space, which you are very familiar with. And it's a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic thing. So talk to us more about your mastery after realizing that you had generations of your family members that were merged with this knowing, and it just handed out from a subatomic level. You could furthermore say that you were subject to what some people call the genetic disposition, but in actuality, you were just wired for this stuff without having to discover it.
Yes. From the study of mediums, it appears that it runs in families. And there's a reason that you look like your parents. There's a reason that in some families there's a more left-handed people than others. Twins run in families. And these are the type of genetic traits which are referred to as recessive traits. In other words, a dominant genetic trait in my family would be brown hair and brown eyes, because pretty much everyone has brown hair and brown eyes. Every couple generations, somebody with blue eyes will show up. But the thing is, it's the same with psychic abilities. And the fascinating thing is, my dad, he was at a USO dance after he got out of the Navy, and he said, I saw this foxy looking dame, and he was like, I think he was like 21 or 22. My mom was only 18. But she worked at a high-end retailer, and so she got all the designer clothes at wholesale. And he thought she was like 30 because she was so decked out. And my parents were great dancers. Now that's a genetic trait I did not inherit. I'm like the worst dancer ever. But the thing is, they would meet at dances, and they knew there was something different, and it was more than just you're attractive. And my mother said, at their like third or fourth dance that they met at, she said, before we go any further, there's something about me you need to know about. I see spirits. To which Dad replied, as only a sailor could, with a number of colorful metaphors, magic, followed by, I do too. And then it dawned on him, oh, so when you have two parents with the same recessive genetic trait, the likelihood one of their children will have that increases exponentially. And that was me. And like you said, I'm wired for it. And also being raised in a home where it wasn't condemned, I wasn't vilified for it. And it has just, I've looked at it always as a gift. And the Italian side of my family looked at it as a vision of the Holy Spirit, a gift from God. My dad's side of the family, they were Baptist, and they were a little bit leery of it, and they kept it kind of quiet. Although my father had 4 siblings, 3 sisters and a brother, and one of his sisters had these abilities, as did his mother and her mother. All right, so it ran there, and it ran back on the Italian side of the family way into the 1890s. So having these genetically recessive traits just made me more predisposed to it. And what people need to understand is that all human beings have the same basic physiology. And there's 2 areas in our body, the pineal gland in the brain, which is behind the center of the forehead, the proverbial third eye chakra, and the other one is at the bottom of the rib cage, which is the solar plexus. And these are the 2 main receptor areas. Now, the cool thing about the chakras, there's 7 main chakras in our body. The Hindus identified these, and all your listeners, I'm sure a lot of them do yoga and they meditate, so they may be familiar with the chakras. The interesting thing is the 7 chakras coincide with the location of the 7 endocrine glands in our body. And the endocrine glands all emit hormones, and they have electrochemical responses. Ooh, there we go again with that electro activity. And the pineal gland is where we receive data, visions, auditory messages, knowing things. The solar plexus is where we receive feelings, impressions, emotions. And the cool thing about the solar plexus, it's called the solar plexus because it looks, the ganglia that emit from it look like the rays of the sun, and it's the second most complex bundle of nerves in the body outside of the cerebral cortex in our brain. In fact, a lot of neuroscientists, the scientists who study the human brain, have begun referring to the solar plexus as the second brain. And other animals have more than one brain. I mean, an octopus has nine, one in its head and one for each arm. So if an octopus, okay, can have more than one brain, why can't a human? And so there's a physiological reason for psychic and mediumistic activity, because both these areas pick up on electromagnetic frequency, and that EM impulse gets translated into recognizable information based on our memories, feelings, and cultural associations. Long story short, some people are simply better at this than others. Some people are better being athletes. I mean, I can swim. I'll never be a Michael Phelps. I can play guitar. I'm never going to be a Jimi Hendrix or an Eric Clapton. I can do math. Forget about me being a Max Tegmark or a Stephen Hawking. But the thing is, it's available to everyone, and it's nothing to be afraid of. I liked in the beginning when you were talking about paranormal and supernatural. I agree with you, because spirit communication, detecting the presence of spirits, picking up on future events, which is a psychic skill. It's neither paranormal or supernatural. It's merely a normal part of nature. And we're finally living in an age, at least in the West, where the stigma to this is beginning to in the societal sense, erode, and people are beginning to take these things seriously. That, and there's been scientific studies. I've been the subject of many studies with scientists on psychic and mediumistic activity and how it works from a physiological basis. So essentially, all the things that we're talking about are real, and they are, if they're not provable now, it's only a matter of time. Until then, have faith. See, faith bridges the divide. I mean, people have been communicating with spirits from since the dawn of history. There's all sorts of stories about this. People have been anticipating future events. This isn't hocus pocus or magic. It's a normal part of nature.
Yeah, I've spoken to many neuroscientists, and I get a little perplexed. I have a lot of friends that are parapsychologists and scientists that measure all this stuff. And I love the inquiry of, well, you'll sit here with a straight look on your face and tell me there's no such thing as the third eye just because you don't see it being sympathetically innervated within the brain, that it doesn't exist yet. Once you master the imperium of the 50 trillion cells that exist within your physical flesh, you have potential of what we call 0.07 millivolts of energy potential, which you can commandeer with your attention intention and form and create anything that you desire within this material space. And so the phenomenon, yes, there's evidence of neuro bundles, the neuroplasticity of the physical body. And furthermore, within Taoism, we talk about the Bai Hui, the actual center point. There's 9 eyes within the upper dantian. And then we have the middle dantian and the lower dantian. There's 9 dantians. We call it an energy elixir field. And you start off with the Lao Gong points, which are the hands and feet, which have more nerve endings than most parts of your body. That's the first part of a receptive vibratory state that you can start getting evidence that energy potential, we call it absorbing the riches. You accumulate that energy and you're able to saturate the physical flesh at a subatomic level. Now you're off to the races. Now there's evidence. It's so powerful to find evidence. Precognition and things of that nature are important. I don't like to front load people. It's very important for me when I'm teaching them a mastered skill that they can describe it for themselves. I can see it and explain it for them, yet they have to start mastering the ability as you develop all these clear senses. I always tell people, if you are a human being and you have a nervous system, I can train you in any level of what we call sensory perception. There is no exclusion or of that ability as a human being, because you have the tuning fork. So it's just about mastering that. People just go, oh, well, I can't feel energy. Oh, shit. How did I feel that? Whoa. Because it's there. You just have to realize that your participation is not required. Move out of the way and allow yourself to represent the unified state of wholeness, which is healing, by merging with this resonance. And now you have it. Now its abilities that are solidified, codified into what we call burning in the energetic architecture that is as palpable and as tangible as your physical flesh. Yes. Now you get off to the races. It's funny how you said the solar plexus for a Taoist is what we call the yellow emperor center point, where all the emotions are stored and then they transmute into the organs, which is part of the 5 elements. And that is where you transmute at the lowest level physical element. And that is a process that comes with your inability to master the energy potential, emotions, mental, physical state. It goes downhill from there. So you must be able to realize that the thoughts, feelings, and emotions are just a recipe for something that can be anchored in the physical flesh, or you can transmute it into anything that you choose to as you master yourself.
I love the way you called it. You refer to the solar plexus as the yellow.
It's the yellow emperor, the yellow court within Taoism. That's what we refer to the solar plexus. And there's the middle and lower dantian. So the upper dantian is the sun, the middle dantian is the earth, the lower dantian is the primordial mother, which is the creation of all things.
In Hinduism and in yoga, each chakra has a different color, and the solar plexus is yellow. And it's interesting when you say they call it the yellow emperor. The crown chakra, that's the one that connects you to the universe, is violet. The third eye chakra is indigo, which is a rich red-blue color. The throat chakra, which controls not only your ability to speak, but also clairaudient messages, is blue. The heart is green, but sometimes pink. It's fascinating because according to yoga and in Hinduism, it oscillates between green and pink. Then, of course, there's the solar plexus, which is yellow. And then there is the orange chakra, which is around the belly button. And then there's the red chakra at the base of the spine. And that is our connection with Mother Earth, with the earth. And when all the chakras, when all the energy centers are in alignment, that's when you're operating at peak efficiency, as it were. And what I've really found enjoyable and fascinating about this conversation is we're describing pretty much the same phenomenon, just through different terminology. And I love it when that happens, because faith has been in one corner, science in the other. And now we're beginning to see that, really? Okay, I mean, people of faith have been saying the soul pre-exists the body, comes in the body, moves on. Quantum physicists, energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. People of faith, we're all interconnected. Quantum physics, we're all interconnected. I mean, everything that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, it's always been there. And in the exciting times that we live in, is there's been advances in afterlife sciences. We're living in very interesting and perhaps troubled times now, but we have to keep the faith, because when has Earth been utopia? Was it during the Roman Empire? Oh, I think not. Was it during the Dark Ages? Was it during the bubonic plague, the Black Death of the Middle Ages? Was it during the Industrial Revolution, when pollution was off the scale? Was it during World War I, World War II, the Great Depression? The thing is, the world has always been a very turbulent system, because that's its nature, or that's rather what humans choose to make it as. But on the spiritual level, once again, as you were saying, those are all the distractions. Okay, that's the polarity between the yin and yang, the positive, the negative, and it's getting to the 0 point, to that point of balance. That's what spirituality is. It's the eye of the hurricane, in a way. I live in Florida, so I've been through 25 hurricanes. So, people think, oh, the eye of the hurricane, that's a good thing. It's like, yeah, it doesn't last very long because the other side of the hurricane's coming through. But it's a good metaphor that even in this vast, turbulent system, there's a place of peace. So we have to look at the difficult times that many people perceive or believe, and which I believe that we're going through. It will pass. It always does.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, my teacher Lao Tzu, that I've been channeling for 36 years, and my other 171 teachers, has made it very clear I commune with him on a second-by-second basis. And furthermore, for a show, if you want a visceral kinesthetic response, just blast the space out as a collective, and you feel his presence at a visceral level. The point being, as we're getting these messages, my dialogue with my teachers is a monologue with the primordial mother. This would be reflected to, the diamond of perfection, which is another facet. How you look through the diamond and how I look through the diamond still acquires that resonance that reflects the evidence of the information, and it is undeniable. And so, when you look at the energy centers, you refer to chakras, we call them dantians within Taoism. They're called, energy elixir fields.
Yeah.
Furthermore, there's nine of those within a Taoist system as a starting point. You would consider the transpersonal points as transferred. They're dantians. So the earth is the first dantian. The second one is the perineum. Third, the pelvis. Fourth, the what you would call the solar plexus. Fifth is the heart center, which is a fiery red color, as the spirit of the energy is the red phoenix. And so when you amplify these spirit entities that are nurturing and protecting your vital organs, and you find the harmonious center point, it's not excessive or deficient, you have incredible insight to things, as you said, regulating the chakras. And furthermore, you go up the scale, and, the evidence is the primordial mother is the womb of creation. So from that darkness, the absorption of all colors, the evidence in the material world is yang. And so that presents itself as the sun. And the sun's rays, the sun's frequency brings the symbiotic relationship, the perfect dance between that electric element and the magnetism of Earth, resulting in what we call the rainbow, which would be the center point. And to some ancient practices, we call it the rainbow body. And that's why you look for that center point, because that's the center of the rainbow.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Through that power.
Beautiful.
And that's where all the magic starts taking place. And it's like so amazing when you and I have these conversations through incredible insight. Biologically, we've spent many decades mastering this awareness, that it is so clear that the universal state, the unified state, is being whole. That is the definition of healing. You want for nothing. You expect nothing. You are in servitude, and you are selfless. And it doesn't require your participation. It will just be. Anyone who's ever helped someone in need, you find that desire. And so by raising the collective frequency, the resonance, the evidence is the human condition dissolves and humanity returns to their beautiful relationship with empathy. And now we have evidence of harmony, perfection, love. But it's not a hallmark throwaway where most people just go, oh, yeah, it's love. And people are like, yeah, I've heard that before. Roll your eyes.
Yeah.
But it's like that's a starting point, because it's a subjective thing, right? Until you raise a resonance that is universal, that we can all transmit and admit and feel that a frequency that does not desire anything. You are whole. That will come in that form, and you'll see it, right? So, we are dancing with this relationship through this conversation, and we're feeling the oscillating effects of the energy potential, and it's a unified state. It is an experience. This is not just a conversation. We are sharing someone, whoever it may be that listens to this conversation, an experience of a heightened state of unification. And you can merge with that. And if we're looking at neurology, you can, as this is a whole of mirrors, you use the mirror neurons within your physical body to emulate and oscillate that same frequency, which would acquire the 4-minute mile as a historical moment of self-realization. If he can do it, I can do it. And there we have it. We have the magic, the unified state. And I think that, most people don't realize it's that simple. When you move out of the way, you're already whole.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, when you get the ego out of the way, then all of a sudden you connect with the spirit. So once again, there's the same thing. Yeah, it comes down to this, San, is that the truth is the truth. I like something, because a lot of people will negate or refute what we say. And it was St. Thomas Aquinas, who was a great theologian, who said that for those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who do not, none may be possible. And the great astrophysicist of our times, Neil deGrasse Tyson, said, the beauty of science is that you don't have to believe in it for it to be true. And so the truth is the truth. It's, once again, the light is there. You can block it with distractions, which come in the form of denial or angst or selfishness, but it's always there. And the truth is the truth. And I think it's important for people to realize that, particularly when you are going through difficult times, the loss of a loved one, health issues, financial crises, fear. You have to realize that the light is there. And by staying focused on your intention, on positivity, you're going to get to that 0 point, like you're talking about. Find that balance, and you'll get through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just wisdom teaching beyond wisdom teaching. It's so profound what you're saying, and you find that center point. You're Sherlock to your Watson, and it's elementary, my dear Watson. And that is really profound because you merge with it, and it's an experience. Enough of the talkie. We need walkie. I'm an 80s guy, so I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anyone. It's like, I want you to show me. And this is a part where a lot of people proverbially shh the bed because it's all talkie nonsense, and they cannot bring the receipts. They cannot harness the energy to show you evidence. And that's the experiential moment that is so important. And, this is where I love conversations with physicists or neurologists, but it gets a little tiring because they're so stuck in their ways, so limited. I always say, if you come from psychology, biology, neurology, spirituality, any actualities, you are limited at best. If you honestly understand you're all things and nothing, then there is no further inquiry. You now need to just hold that resonance to reveal it and show yourself a repeatable experience. And that will come in manifestation, magic, healing. These evidence-based things is where people get excited. You're being able to reveal information about someone and share it with them, speak with their loved ones. This is evidence, and it blows people away. I like playing, I'm out here in Las Vegas, so I'll go down to the strip with my kids. I've got 6 kids. I've taught them remote viewing, clairvoyance, all these kind of things. They love doing energy healing. And we play family day. And, you'll come up to a group of people that are partying. They might be a little lit. And you ask them, hey, would you like to experience bliss? And they're like, sure. And, you supercharge them in 5 seconds. Or furthermore, I call it the psychic reading, right? My psychic readings, it consists of reading the energy centers from the bottom up, because there's always an out. When people start to realize that all I'm doing is reading from a menu, I have no investment in the outcome that you need to tell me I'm the next coming of Jesus or I'm the psychic medium extraordinaire. I just read the information because I see it. And that's where people get a little sober real fast. You walk up to someone in 5 seconds and give them their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state, and they go, how in Tao's name is that possible? That's where you start at the bottom, because there's always an out. I always start with the earth and then the perineum, which gives you clear evidence of excess or deficiency. We look at it like this, so you can see whether they've got a lot of boundaries and parameters that they want to restrict the amount of information they want to share with the world. And by the time they get to the sexual energy, they're like, whoa, you can stop. How do you even know this? How do you know this? Well, I don't know anything. I'm just reading information right now. And this is how powerful the message that you have with all your years of experience, and you've enlightened thousands of people through your journey. This is the power that you are sharing with the world that is so critical and important to someone's self-realization. I cannot support it enough, what you are doing to help others return to remembering who they are.
Thank you. And ditto, because we have to be out here. And I love the fact that we have the social media platform, the platform of the podcast to let people know these things. And we live in an exciting information age where we're using science and technology to help people acknowledge and find comfort in their own energy and spirituality. And there's nothing greater than this mission than to let people know that, this physical life, this is not all there is. Now, we always have to be careful when we say things like that in interviews, because for people who are listening who are suffering with depression, San and I are not encouraging anyone to intentionally cut your life short. Okay. Because you always hear how great the other side is. We have a path, and every day that you're alive is a gift, although many days do not feel that way. Okay. I'll freely admit that there have been some days, the day my mother died, the day my father died, the day my 2 best friends died, certainly did not feel like a gift. But life is it's like a journey on a boat down a river. And sometimes it's smooth sailing and the waters are crystal clear. And then other times there's rapids, and then there's waterfalls. And when you lose somebody you love, you're going over a waterfall. And people along that journey are going to come on the boat, and others are going to leave. And eventually we're going to leave that boat. But what I've learned is, don't try to paddle against the current. You've got to go with the flow, like this show teaches us. Go with the flow and realize that everything that we experience in this material world is a lesson, it's an adventure, it's a gift, and it all has a purpose. You may not fully understand it, but at some point in an elevated level of consciousness, you will. And to reiterate, for people who are suffering with grief and are harboring suicidal thoughts, 988 suicide prevention hotline, call 988. There are people who care that will be listening and that can help you, because we have to understand that life is not always easy. And I work a lot with grief, and I teach people the objective on the journey through grief is not, I'm going to feel all happy again, but it's acceptance of the reality of that. And through that acceptance, you get to a point of inner peace. That's your 0 point. Okay. Your 0 point. And through that acceptance, that helps you breathe free again. I work a lot with helping parents heal. And it's the greatest honor of my life to work with this organization, which does exactly that. It helps parents who've lost children, the most devastating loss of all, and helping people get to that 0 point. And it's not an easy mission. There's nothing we can do about the fact someone we love has died, but what we can do is learn how to change our reaction to it. And that's through the acceptance and eventually getting to that 0 point. I'm working on an article now about teaching men how to grieve. I write for Best Holistic Life magazine. You and I, we're warm and fuzzy guys. Okay, we're into our spirituality and all that. But I'll bet the way you were raised was girls cry, boys don't. Okay, that's how guys have traditionally been raised. And
That
guys,
was a fundamental turning point for me, though.
yeah,
I was raised by a radical feminist single mother, so I was around yin energy and maternal
okay.
energy my whole childhood. So I had the complete opposite. I was inverted,
Well, that's
which
good then.
really
And that
throw out the psychic abilities instantaneously.
well, my dad was a Navy SEAL, but he taught me a real man is never afraid to cry for someone he loves who died. And that's a big part of the article that I'm writing is teaching men that we have hearts, feelings, and tear ducts for a reason. And that when we shed tears of grief, it's been scientifically proven that tears of grief contain the chemicals that cause depression. So you're getting it out of your body and teaching men to cry, teaching men to grieve. And you don't have to be public about it. You can go somewhere by yourself. You can park somewhere, have a good cry because that's a healthy thing to do. And it's what you're talking about with the balance. Those negative, painful emotions, and then we all want to get to the happy part. But you know what? What we really want to get to is the zone in between where it doesn't hurt anymore. That's that 0 point. That's the eye of the hurricane. And I think it's very important for people to realize that this is all part of life. And when you accept that, that's the first step to getting to that 0 point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a little concerning to me and problematic when people believe they are only of the light. Now, everyone has this exhibit of yin energy, which is really the absorption, or it's an inverted state. It's not negative or dark in any way. Alchemy in of itself, in definition, is your relationship with the Tao and the dark arts, because that's the primordial creation of all things, the primordial mother. So it all comes from the darkness, the void, to reveal the material state of the yang.
Right. Exactly. Because without the darkness, you can't see the light,
Mhm.
so you've got to have both. And think about it, within everybody, there's dark and light. We're not all, it's funny when I meet the people in our line of work, they go, I'm like a ray of light. I'm so spiritual. I'm so holy. It's like, yeah, I think you're kind of missing the point there. Right. Even Jesus got mad. He got mad on the temple. He got ticked off at people. All right. So if Jesus can lose his temper, all right, and he set the bar pretty high. He said, "Be better than me." I said, "Well, that's a pretty high bar." But the thing is, we all have light and dark within them. But what we do have control over is our decisions. And do we want to make the more intense, distracted decisions, or do we want to make the more peaceful decisions? And once again, there's that balance. There's the balance between the two.
Absolutely amazing conversation today, my dear friend. I
I've
really,
really enjoyed
really
this. Thank you.
it's a really, really powerful insight, wisdom teaching, all the things that you're doing to reveal the true nature of reality for the seeker or collective that you are communing with through your path, through your wisdom teachings, your published books, your information, your classes. This is just so powerful, and I'm very grateful that we have reunited, and it feels good as a relationship that is being nurtured through many lifetimes. And to see that and to be aware of that now is so powerful. And we just merge and continue to rise. And I always tell people, while you're on your journey of seeking as a Taoist seeker to find your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. The absolute truth, if someone gives you the absolute truth, about face and run in the other direction, because it is determinative on your own experience. It means nothing if someone tells you this is how reality works, you need to do this and this and this. Unless you experience it, it's nonsensical. And so this will define your own ascension and realization through these paths, through wisdom teaching from yourself, myself. People will find their center point and they will blossom as they should and reveal that harmony, that love, the oneness. And so, in closing, I would love to ask you, my dear friend, what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Wow. Spiritual consciousness. It's the acknowledgement that we are all cells in a greater reality. Christians may call it cells in the body of God. Physicists may call it, we're quantum, we're quantum energy. It's an acknowledgement that our physical life, well, we have one life and it's eternal. And that our physical life is only a pothole in the road of our life. So spiritual consciousness is the acknowledgement that we are electromagnetic souls, that we are pure energy, and we have an eternal journey that we're on. I do believe in reincarnation. I believe every near-death experiencer, myself included, that I've come into contact with, believes that we are energy. We come into this world, we attach to a fetus, a body, then we leave it. But the thing is, we're still us. We're still that little drop of energy. And so spiritual consciousness is being consciously aware that we're spirits that are immortal living beings. And the joke I always like to make is, don't take life so seriously because you never get out of it alive. And the thing is, you do, but just your body doesn't. So that would be my definition.
That is absolutely beautiful. I've done hundreds of these podcasts and never got the same answer as I should not, because you are a facet of the diamond of perfection that gives us that insight to spiritual consciousness through your lens. It's all being created. I love that. We call it the immortal self-realization through the crystalline effects of Taoist alchemy is how we look at that. It's so powerful. I'm going to put all your social sphere and interweb connections under this podcast. And furthermore, is there anything you want to share with the audience? How you do one-on-one sessions, group sessions, teachings? Share what you would like. I want all my students, disciples 126s, and subscribers to come and experience Mark Anthony's offerings.
Well, thank you. I invite everyone to visit my website, which is just like my book, afterlifefrequency.com. You can find out about one-on-one telephone sessions with me, which are just as accurate as in person. I do a number of what I call light circles, which are online. Then I'm also I'm always on tour. And in 2025, and in fact, we're already booking things in 2026, I'll be throughout the U.S. I'll be speaking at several conferences, including the Sedona Ascension Retreats in March 2025. I will be in Houston in February. I'll be at the New Living Expo in San Rafael, California in May. I know in August, I'm honored to be a speaker at the 50th anniversary International Association for Near-Death Studies. In October, I'll be at the Omega Institute. And then there's other venues in between. The thing is, if you sign up for my newsletter, you can find out about that. I also write for Best Holistic Life magazine, and you can find out about my spiritual bestsellers, Never Letting Go, Evidence of Eternity, and the Afterlife Frequency. And all that you can find at afterlifefrequency.com. And it's an honor to be on the show, San. I can't thank you enough. And it's an honor to be able to speak to your audience. Many blessings, namaste, and God bless you all.
Oh, thank you so much, my dear friend. I'm very grateful for you. I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.